What up? We're sitting here with Julian Blanc and Luke and Evie sitting behind the camera. And guess what? Me and Luke were actually here maybe a year or two ago or something like that. And it's funny because the videos that we shot are in our backlog and we haven't even released them. And it made us realize how quick time passes, to the point that you start to think to yourself, how much can you even remember anything at all? Now, let me ask you questions. We're going to start this video with asking a simple question. Is this: how many of the most horrible things in your life that ever happened to you that seemed like a really, really big deal at the time can you remember in any significant way? Now, going deeper, how many of the good things? I want you to think of the very best restaurants that you ate at, or the very best partner that you met, and those incredible intimate moments, as we would, the intimate moments as we would refer to him here on the Julian himself channel.
Oh, cementing a moment.
An intimate moment with a new partner in a way that was very, very memorable. And so, yes, non-PG. So that being the case, think of that. Think of that amazing trip that you took. I can remember I went to Greece once. I went to the Greek islands. And then I also remember going to Italy and a lot of other things that I remember that were pretty cool. But what I'd ask you is, are these vivid memories to you, or are they essentially memory fragments? And in light of that, if a lot of the really high highs and low lows that you've experienced are kind of a blur at this point, where is there any meaning to your life at all? Look at these people sitting here in the park. Even Alfonso, look at the people in the park, Alfonso. Sitting here trying to make happiness. It's all worthless. Just quit and go home.
A never-ending pursuit.
A never-ending pursuit. How much do you remember in your life? And if that's the case, what is even the point of living your life? What does it mean to live your life in a way that is actually worthwhile or that makes sense? And how do you move forward in light of that, right? And what we're referring to here, what we're alluding to, some people would call that nihilism, and we're not actually preaching nihilism at all, but we're just kind of touching on it and then saying to yourself, where do you go from there? So you're somebody who I've seen doesn't take a lot of things seriously that other people take very, very seriously. I've seen it where I've had a breakup and I'm sitting there and I'm like, Jackie, why? And you're like, oh, chill, bro. It's cool. And I've seen that where like I even when I was younger, I could recognize that about you. You were able to kind of see that things were not as big of a deal as they seem like. Even when you came to LA, you had, because essentially what you had when you came to LA was some sort of version of nihilism, more or less, right? Which is the idea, nihilism, that's jargon for, there's no point to anything. And I don't think that's what we're talking about in this video. But there's sort of an enlightened nihilism perspective that is interesting, right? Because if you just say, oh, there's no point to anything, while that you could even make arguments that that's logically true, I think we can go past that. I think that's a very shallow perspective. I think we can go way, way past that. But I think it's first important to even acknowledge that, to even consider nihilism, because some people can't even consider it. They can't even let a nihilistic idea of existence into their conscious, into their psyche. It just freaks them out too much,
Well, there's like two places you can go with this. Like, there's no point to anything, fuck it all, or there's no point to anything and now you're free. You wouldn't want there to be a certain point, because now you're trapped trying to, obey those rules or live up to that. So for me, right before moving to LA, it was really reflecting on this whole impermanence of things, including the impermanence of you, the fact that you're going to die. And it's something like we tend to have a lot of resistance to bringing our awareness to. Like, no one wants to think about this. Like, you're going to die someday, no matter what you do. We all try to survive. When you can't survive, you die. And everything you hold dear, everything you create, everyone you come in contact with, they're going to die too. Like, nothing is permanent. Friends will no longer be friends. People you love, they'll no longer love you. You'll no longer love them. They'll die. You'll die. Your kids will die. Their kids will die. Everyone will die. Explode. The sun's going to explode. Your legacy is going to soon turn to dust. All your thoughts are going to turn to dust. There's no point. Now, just hearing that, you're probably like, what the fuck? But bringing your awareness to this is extremely freeing. Why? Because on one hand, we live our lives thinking that we can survive. We're thinking that we have all the time in the world, and you just put your dreams aside. It's like, oh, I'm not going to do that because I'll do it in 20 years, in 10 years. I'll do it later. I'll do it someday. Someday may not come. The sooner you realize that, the better. And the fact that you are going to die just really, for me, it was freeing. It's like reflecting on, like, I'm going to die, but I'm not going to die right now. How am I going to live my life so that when I die, I just feel like, fuck yeah, you know, you milked life to the fullest. And the fact that there was no point, now I'm like, well, I can make my own point. The fact that there is no meaning, you can make your own meaning, and now you're free to do something that is authentic to you. And that's moving to LA for me versus trying to live up to certain expectations or values that I didn't hold to heart, and completely changed my life. It's actually something I do every 2-3 weeks at this point. I do like an imagine you're dead meditation. It's like, imagine you died right now, what comes up? And the answers are always extremely authentic. You know, even in terms of finding your purpose, I was like, what's my purpose? Imagine you died. You know, what comes up? You're like, oh shit, I wish I've done that. If I died right now, I wish I would have done that. And it gives you a much more authentic direction in life.
So this is very, very critical, because at a low level, say someone's new to self-development, they'll say things like, well, I can't do that. My parents would get mad at me. And to them, that's very real. Like, my dad doesn't approve of that. I mean, not just, at low level, it's a bit condescending because they care about their family. That's the low level. But you've also got to understand that to an extent, a lot of time the values of your parents, they're trying to impose that onto a child. That's not their job to do so. They're there to help you, but you've got to make your own decision. So one of the first things that say David Data, the way of the superior man, is live as if your father or parents were dead. I can't remember his father or parents, but that was very, very important. That's freeing right then and there. From there, you want to get kind of keyed in on what are your higher values? What is the legacy that you want to create? But as you talked about, this is where it gets interesting. The extent of the person's concerns is going to show the size of the human being. So if they're like, oh, I'm focused on getting my next meal, that's very different than I'm focused on my 6-month plan or my 1-year plan or my 5-year plan or my legacy after I'm gone, right? There's a whole different, you could really measure the person by the extent to which they are focused on the impact that they want to create. And that's really, for sure, an important level. But then you get into this kind of other side of it, the nihilism side. The best experience that you have, you can't really remember. The worst experience that you have, you can't really remember. The legacy that you're going to create while helping people, in the end, will be turned to dust. Even if you left this, you know, you had hundreds of kids, you're like Genghis Khan, you're like, look at me. Doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, even the sun explodes, the world is gone. So from that perspective, on one level, there's an easy positive to it, because you're not getting emotionally triggered. Many people emotionally triggered very, very easily. It's unreal how much things just get under their skin and mess with them, right? Now, conversely, the downside is it can also, you know, the upside is that when you're more nihilistic, you don't get triggered as easily. The downside is nothing seems as joyful or significant in some ways at a surface level. We're going to show you how to get around this. Because you also realize how impermanent it is. So you don't have like that big win, like, I am this, I am that, I accomplished this, because you realize how vain and utterly stupid the whole thing is. Complete nonsense. So those are kind of like two different levels to it, right? And what I've seen, and this is super fascinating in my mind, is that we tend to create a halo effect or engage with things very, very deeply. So you say LeBron James or Stephen Curry, they're playing for NBA final, right? To them, that's this really, really big deal, getting that final. Or it's a really, really big deal to be the MVP. Or it would be really bad to be humiliated, right? We create this like halo effect where we're very, very engaged with something. Now, in my mind, we've talked about this being the cause and not the effect. And what I think is important is that when you're younger, you're being blown around by these different things that are affecting you. These different aspects are hitting you. I need the championship, or I don't want this to happen. It seems like such a big deal. Later, when you realize that you can't even remember most of it, and it's not going to amount to anything, you don't get pulled in as easily. You don't get pulled down the rabbit hole as easily. Now, at that point, you can make a decision where you say, I'm the one who's going to generate or stoke the interest in that. I'm going to make that engaging. I'm going to take a goal that wouldn't be a big deal, and I'm going to put my energy into it. Now, what this is a shifting from being oriented outside of yourself and things pulling you here, and people are able to get under your skin, to an inside-out approach, where inside you say, even though I get it that there's no point to anything, I'm going to create an engagement to that and experience the joy of that. And the reason why I think this is very significant and how this changes the way that you live your life is, for example, let's say you're going to eat like some like really wild meal and it's really unhealthy. Well, you can do that from time to time, but you don't want to get sucked into it, because ultimately you realize you could go eat all this like crappy food and it just runs down your health, and you're not going to remember it later. So what you should do is go get food that tastes good, but something that's not going to run down your health, because end of the day, you're going to lose that memory. So you want to live your life in, first of all, a way that's sustainable, an emphasis on sustainability, realizing that all these ups and downs that you have are going to pass anyway. So, you don't want to be sitting here in 20 years and all these decisions that you made amounted to you being miserable.
Yeah.
But you also want to shift an emphasis from it being sort of on the, outside things are pulling at you to something where you create the joy. You create the criteria. You create the criteria for success. And you live your life in a way that is meaningful to you.
Yeah.
And that's called being an adult. That's a lot more pressure than a lot of people can deal with. There's an existential crisis there that's too heavy or too much. And that's why they live their lives, for most people, at a very shallow existence, where they're just being kind of like, oh, what do this people think? Oh, what's that going to mean? Oh, that would be bad. That would be good. Crazy thing, too, is that for most people, if that's their baseline, what happens is when something bad happens, it's super horrible emotionally. But whenever something good happens, it's like blip.
Yeah.
Right? So you're waiting for this better future, waiting to be happy. And again, you're going like that. Something bad. Oh! Something good. Cool. And knowing that about yourself, what happens is you're now living your life in a way that's more of your own design and more authentic. And then from there, you can even stoke the emotions that you want to have, because you're creating the criteria for it. And it's a life that's more authentic because it's something that is not just you being this kind of empty shell being pulled around, but you are the proactive force.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's so much you get out of this. Like, right now, just being aware of it, like, oh shit, he's right. If whatever it is you're freaking out right now about, it's gonna end. You'll probably forget about this in 2 years. Like, a lot of those moments,
The worst stuff.
say even this past year, a lot of the moments where I'm like, oh shit, I can't remember them now. Like, no idea. And then, like, every once in a while, like, someone will say, oh, this one thing. I'm like, oh yeah, I think I remember that. Oh yeah, I was pretty freaked out about, oh yeah. Oh, anyway.
Really messed up.
That was fucked. Anyway, like, you forget, like, this too shall pass. And the way I really viewed life, by the way, kind of considering, like, it's all gonna end, now what? What's the point? It's kind of like that frame of you being stuck in detention. It's like, say, right now, you're born, it's like, here, do your homework, do your homework, do your homework. And that's how most people live their lives. They want to follow the instructions. It's like, tell me what to do, let me execute, let me get the good grade, and that's how you go about it. That's why even people
The freedom's too heavy for them.
Well, yeah, they'll turn to friends, school, peers, their job. They'll turn to religion for this, like the way most religions, like, do this, do that. You're like, okay, give me the instructions. And hearing this freaks them out, but in reality, it's the most freeing thing. It's like, instead of doing the homework, now you're stuck in detention, and you have X amount of time that passes before you die. You can do nothing, or now it's like, what do I actually want to do? What comes from me? Not that someone else tells me. It's like, what meaning do I want to give to life? What meaning do I want to give to my job, to the things that I do? And as you said, it's freaky because you're like, no one's telling me. Like, I have to tell myself I'm free. Like, freedom scares people like crazy. But you wouldn't want to live your life any other way. Like, you wouldn't want to be born into a life where it's like, here's how you should live. Now you're not free. Now you're a slave. Now you're following the homework till you die.
People. Yeah. 99+% of people, I'd guess.
Oh yeah. And it's not just in school. Like, even in videos here, you might be watching these videos like, tell me the homework. And there is none. Like, right now, realize you're going to die. There's no point. And let that free you. Again, you're one step away from despair, like nihilism leading to despair, fuck it, or nihilism leading to enlightenment, if you will.
The way that I experience this is how, like, from a rubber meets the road perspective, here's how I experience it. Whenever something really bad happens, I see people freaking out, and I'm like, that's so cute. They think this fucking matters. That is so cute. Like, I'm jealous of how real the movie is to them. It's like they're in this fucking 3D movie, and it's just so real. Like, they're in this, like, really gripping movie. And likewise, when I see people, like, well, again, like I was saying, for most people, the bad is like this, the good's kind of like that. But whenever I see people that are, like, really excited about something, I'm like, yo, that's really cool. But I also understand that's going to pass, and they're going to forget about it. Or, the one that I see even more commonly is that they're excited about something they're going to do. But then when they actually do it, it's never as good as they think. You see a lot of that, like, the vacation's going to be awesome, and then on it, wherever you go, there you are. Whatever emotional addictions you have, you're in, and then it's not a big deal. So for me, it's kind of funny. It looks like people are kind of playing in like a movie. Like, everything's so serious, man. And on one level, I think it's important to take life very seriously, because otherwise you just wind up, it becomes an excuse essentially for apathy and stagnation. That's not enlightenment to me, or nihilism. A lot of people that claim to, like, this is my favorite thing with nihilists, like, everybody's a nihilist until it comes time to pay the bill, and so it's like, oh, I don't give a fuck, I don't care about that, and then as soon as actually the hell comes that happened because you didn't care, they're like, no, please help me. Some of my friends that are nihilists, like, they sit there like they're always asking me or they're always saying that they don't care, how much they don't care. And then whenever everything falls apart, they come to me because I work hard and have the resource to help them, and they're begging for the resources. I'm like, yo, you're gonna be a nihilist. Like, go down with the ship, baby. Like, I could respect that. Like, I'm a nihilist, nothing matters. And then they just go down with the ship. I'd be like, damn, that's gangster. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it.
Around, like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I could respect it at least, even though I would think it's stupid. But they never go down with the ship. They always want, they're always there. That nihilist, they're not a real nihilist. They're lazy, they're glamorizing it, like, I don't care, nothing matters. But then at the end of the day, they're begging the person with resources. Like these old fables where, like, the one animal, like, puts away the nuts for the winter and the other one's just relaxing, and then they beg the one that put it away. And you'll just see this over and over. So to me, on one side, I want to be fully engaged with what I'm doing, but the way that I choose to live my life is in such a way that I want to see my inner growth continuing to expand. I want to see myself becoming more awake. I want to see a seed of proactivity forming. And so to me, that's mature adult growth. And I would guess that probably most cavemen would get this. I don't even think this is like this really big deal. But for most people, because we're kind of in a structured society as we see all around us here, they don't really get that opportunity. They take the path of least resistance, which to not take the path of least resistance is very difficult. But for most people, they will. And so they can't own their own freedom. And realizing that things are not as big of a deal as you think makes you realize, no, I've been getting pulled around. I've been pulling into engagement. This halo effect around things has been pulling me in, this halo effect of meaning, and saying, no, it's not that big of a deal. But then don't just stop there at nihilism. Nothing matters. From there, you need the second step, which is that you are creating your own meaning and you are deciding, how you want to grow and live your life. But for most people, it's what's so crazy. They're like, well, if that doesn't just make me happy, what do I care? Whoa, hold up. You make yourself happy. What's this thing? Well, if I make myself happy, why don't I stare at a wall? No, that's you being the lame nihilist who's like, I'm a nihilist until you run out of resources and coming begging me for a granola bar. So to me, so there's a middle ground there. You can decide what you value and to live your life in such a way. That's the difference between being some little slave peon and being your own little deity or god of your own personal reality of your small life that you have. So you've got to make that decision. I think one of the best things anybody can do is clean out their closet. And you clean out your closet, you're like, oh, all these CDs. That CD I went to the store, I bought it, I was excited about it. I went to the store, got this shirt, I was excited about it. Now I don't care about it anymore. Oh, look at that ex-girlfriend. I was so into her. That ex-boyfriend of your girl, so into that ex-partner. I don't care anymore. Like, why don't I care anymore? For me, like getting into Queen's University, such a big deal, going to college. Yeah. Now I don't have my diploma. I don't care. It's cool. I love it. Ross Queens, what's up, Kingston? But it's just like whatever. So realizing that you can start to disconnect and not be pulled around so much. But then remember, don't go into nihilism. That's just apathy. It's an excuse, not real. Mental masturbation. Instead, what you do is you take that second step and you choose to lock in and you choose to bring the joy, and you'll be so much happier and it's so much more real. It's sweet. And I think you'll really enjoy it.
Yeah, that's what really allows you to engage, is the fact that it's not so serious. It's like the fact that you think like everything's super fucking serious and heavy. I mean, good luck engaging in that, because it's just too much of a big deal. There's too much pressure. When you realize like, oh, it doesn't matter? Fuck yeah. Like, that's what allows you to kind of loosen up while at the same time giving it
as opposed to
your
it doesn't
all.
matter and then, the juice isn't worth the squeeze, man.
But that's the other thing too, by the way, with the way that we're conditioned with the whole like carrot and stick approach, where it's like, if you don't do this, this bad thing will happen. You do this to get the reward. And then when people hear like, no, there's nothing to take, they're like, well, what's the point? But there's another type of drive that comes from within. Instead of like what I call desperation, it's inspiration. People think, I only work to make money. It's like, if I gave you all the money in the world, you wouldn't just be idle. None of us would be inspired to be idle. You wouldn't be alive. You would still do something, but coming from a different place. And this is the lane that being aware of this kind of puts you in. And it also, as you said, like, allows you to disconnect from the physical so much and not try to find yourself in the physical so much. Like, it's not the next accomplishment or the next thing that's going to make you, abundant, or like, then I'll finally be happy. Look back at all the other things you thought would have worked, and you just look back at this trail and you're just like, what the fuck? Nothing mattered. I thought that would fix it. I thought that would fix it. I thought that would fix it. And it can seem sad. Like, there's, it's all an illusion. But there's a saying, like, the more disillusionments, the closer you are to enlightenment. Okay? The less you'll try to find yourself in the next thing, and the more free you'll become.
I find this extremely freeing, rather than being stressed out by trying to figure out what is the meaning of it all. A lot of people will just kind of get bogged down by trying to think about, well, what is this all mean? And kind of find this purgatory between the two places that you and Owen just mentioned. Instead, what I do is I use all of this information to create a rubric for my life, where I get to define my own code and then live by that code. Instead of trying to worry about things that are very instantly gratifying, instant gratifications, which is something that I used to do on daily or even by the hour. Now instead, I live my life by this rubric. I originally came up with my own rubric by basically living my life in reverse, thinking about what would my obituary look like, what would my last day look like, and if I'm able to actually define my memories based on that day, I'm sitting there on literally the day after I died, what is the obituary is going to look like, and reverse engineer my life, how is it going to play out? And by thinking that way, I'm able to kind of keep the lows less low and the highs less high, and instead enjoy everything for what it is.
Yeah. And last little thought here, last little idea, stop going against life, start going with life. That's one thing I vowed myself, like, always go with the current of life. Like, what it is. You can resist it and live in hell, just suffering. Like, no, nothing's, some stuff are permanent. Let me try to fix this moment. Let me hang on to this. Or you can be like, okay, nothing lasts forever. We're all going to die. This is what it is. Let's make the best of it. Let's fucking milk it. And when you'll see, like, as soon as you let go of, like, trying to find yourself and you go with the flow of things, life becomes fucking enjoyable. As Owen said, you're right there and you're a free baby.
Surf the wave of life, bro.
Surf, bro. Yeah, my dude.